All right, so again, we're looking at inverses. Inverse means the opposite. So when you see sine -1 is read the inverse of sine. What it means to do is to find the angle in the specific interval. You're going to see that each of these have their own interval. In that interval, whose sine is x. Cosine -1 means to find the angle in the interval 0 to pi whose cosine is x. And tangent -1 of x means find the angle in the interval from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 whose tangent is x. So it's we're undoing here. We're going the opposite way. Before, I would tell you, use your plate, tell me what the sine of 30 degrees is, and you'd find it. Or tell me what the cosine of 5 pi over 4 is, and you would find it. The inverse is doing the opposite. I'm going to tell you the answer. You're going to tell me what angle it goes with here. So looking at your plate for number 1, you have to find, we're doing sine. So sine tells me I have to be in between, looking at your plate, in between in the first quadrant or in the fourth quadrant. If it's negative, we'll be in the fourth quadrant. If it's positive, we're going to be in the first quadrant. So they want to know when the sine is radical 2 over 2. So when you're looking at it, you're looking at the answers now. You're looking for when the answer is radical 2 over 2. And then you're going to find the angle, and we want the angle in radians. So do you see what the angle is there? If you go out from the edge into the inside where the angle is, what's the angle in radians? Where is radical 2 over 2 on your plate? It's at the 45, but I want the radian answer. Pi over 4. That's it. That's all you're doing. So then we want to know when cosine is -1/2. For cosine, we're worried about the top part of the plate here. Where do you see that cosine is -1/2? Remember, cosine's the first one. 2 pi over 3? That's the answer you're going to write down. Tangent is negative radical 3. This is where it's going to be a little weird because the answer isn't straightforward on your plate here, unfortunately. We want to go down to this quadrant because tangent is going to be between 0 and, between pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. So we're in these two quadrants. Tangent is positive in the fourth negative. Tangent is negative in the fourth quadrant, yes? So if you find where it's negative in the fourth quadrant, it's here, which is technically 5, on your plate it's going to say 5 pi radical 3, but we want the negative. So if we just went from 0 and went negative, it would be negative pi over 3. The other thing you could do if you wanted to is you could just find where it's positive and give me the negative answer. Kind of thinking what we did with even and odd. Since it's odd, since we want the negative answer, we have to do the opposite of what's on the plate. So we want negative pi over 3. That's the really weird thing that's going to be here, is with sine and cosine, they don't want answers over pi over 2. So you can't just go into the second quadrant. You got to stay in the first or fourth quadrant. So we're really going to negative radical 3 for the answer. And then where is sine 0? Put your finger on it on your plate. Find it on your plate. Put your finger where sine 0. Sine is the second one, right? So you're looking at the second value on your plate. It's at 0, right? So you just put 0 down. Does that make sense? All you're doing for this next section is using your calculator. So I probably should have told you to take this out, but if you take out your calculator, we've messed with the trig function before. We want to make sure, first off, that your calculator is in radian mode. So you're going to have to go to the settings from the home screen. and make sure that it's in radian mode. Alright, so we're just typing that in the calculator, and you hit the trig button pops up, and you see that on the bottom row, that's where all your negatives are, and your answer should pop up when you type it in as 0.7, what does it say, 2 decimal places, 0.73. So then if you do the next couple, see if you can type those in and get the answers. Alright, so the other answers you should get here, check these, make sure you got these. You should get 1.16. For tangent negative 10, you should get negative 1.47. And for cosine of negative radical 5 over 3, you should get 0.73.
Not get that.
Oh, lied. Yeah, so don't do that. Type in cosine negative 1. I typed in regular cosine. So you should get 2.41. Better?
Yes.
Alright, so questions on that section? That should be pretty straightforward. That's like 8 of your problems tonight.
Yay.
Easy. Alright, this next section, we're trying to find the exact value of each expression, if possible, without using our calculator. So you're not going to type this in the calculator. You need to think through these. The point is looking at what's at the beginning of this problem. We have sine and sine negative 1. What is going to happen with sine and its inverse? They cancel each other out. Just kind of like if you think back to when we did logs. Logs and exponents cancel each other out because they're opposites of each other. They're inverses of each other. These cancel out each other only when, the one thing you have to check, when this is in the correct interval. So for sine negative 1, that's what I gave you this table over here. This is in your book. So for this, the value there has to be between negative 1 and positive 1. Is it between negative 1 and positive 1? Then we can do it. This just cancels, and your answer is 0.85. But there are some instances where that number is not in that interval, so then it's not possible. That's why they said if possible in the directions. Some of them are not possible. So then if you look at the next one, I again want to check this value in the intervals here. So this is with cosine negative 1 first. So it says that the number needs to be between 0 and pi. Is 7 pi over 8 between 0 and pi? Yep, that one works. So the cosine and the cosine negative 1 just cancel out. Your answer is just 7 pi over 8. Number 3, we have negative 3.5, which depending on what order you have, it will work sometimes with tangent and won't work. So you have to pay attention to the rule here. We're looking at the first order, tangent then tangent inverse. That says that that will work for anything. You can take the tangent inverse of any number and it will give you an answer. You cannot, however, take the tangent of any number. If tangent's the inside function, that has to be between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So this one will work. So your answer is just negative 3.5. They just cancel each other out. The last one, we have sine inverse on the outside and sine on the inside, and we want to take the sine of 2 pi. If you remember back to the very beginning, we said, looking at our plate, that we only want to look in the first and fourth quadrant. Is 2 pi in the first or fourth quadrant? Nope. It's not between. If you look at your rule here, your rule says it has to be between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. That is not between. So since this is not in the interval, it's not possible. So that's the one thing you have to watch out for, that it falls in the correct interval. They're just trying to really get you to think about what is an appropriate thing that you can plug in for sine versus what is an appropriate answer you can plug in for negative, sine negative 1, the inverse of sine.